Sounds good.
Hello, beloveds. We are here. It is, in fact, Wednesday. The rumors are true. Amanda is in SESH, is in-house.
Hello.
Game Mistress Amanda, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm living. Like, every day this week has felt like a nice little stretch, you know? So by that reckoning, it's Saturday today, and I'm looking forward to relaxing. Yo, ahoy.
Understand that.
And good seeing you, Richter, as well. Richter, of course, being the matchmaker of this digital meeting.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Everyone, you know, Richter and Sage included, Amanda was sort of just breaking me off on Severed Fate, which is a actual play that they run along with another crew. I've got a sort of chat timer that'll be dropping that in there if you need a prompt assist. But kind of with that in mind, like, what brought you to the tabletop? Like, was it always D&D? And if so, what edition did you begin with?
No, actually, I probably started with the most difficult system to play in as far as learning, and that was Pathfinder 1E.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the American tax system. That's, but I love that. So 1E, because I got to chop it up with, oh my gosh, with Alex, who plays a ton of Pathfinder. Mm-hmm. And 2E to me sounded doable. But it sounds like first edition, which I know nothing about, is an even crunchier system.
Oh boy. And I started back in 2016 and was introduced to it by my husband, who was a D&D player. So he got me involved. I had no clue this world even existed until then.
Way. That's great.
I was always the musician, the choir, orchestra, nerd, geek, did drama and acting, but never really knew anything about TTRPGs or anything like that until about 2016. And it was his good friend, who is actually our roommate now, who knew Pathfinder and started us all off on Pathfinder. And we started by playing Rise of the Rune Lords.
Okay.
I made a rookie mistake, one, by starting in such a difficult system, but two, being a first timer, picking a bard to play the most charismatic class there is, being kind of a wallflower, introverted person, normally didn't realize what I was getting myself into.
Oh man, isn't that always the best when the introvert or the rook is playing the like face of the party or the highly out-facing role playing? That's hysterical.
And how that went was I almost got the entire party killed by the time we were level 2.
You're like, and no one liked my vibe in game, which was silent. Oh, God bless.
I did a good job not being silent, but I did. Our GM was actually really good at the time and was like taking everything literally. And I'm like, I throw a grenade. He's like, do you yell that? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, all the enemies book it. And all the brush around you just caught on fire. And now you guys need to run and get out of there so you don't burn to death.
Oh, I love it.
I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah, you're like, this is real.
Yeah.
No, that honestly could be its own interview segment on itself. Is the amount of times that something is said at table.
Yeah.
And there's sort of a brokering of like, okay, like, was that for us to laugh at? Or are we doing this?
Right,
right. Of course, I'm flashing back to the amount of times that the grease spell was cast in one of my games last night. I'm like, yeah? Like, what is going on? Also, I just need to acknowledge that Richter called that Math Finder. That's incredibly accurate. You pay for the education. And agreed, Sage. You do need a bard that will, at times, bring an unbelievable amount of threat and physical violence down upon the party.
Yes.
That's part of the life of an artist. So like for like first edition, I've never played Pathfinder. You know, I feel like it's fresh in my mind because I've been chopping it up with a GM that plays a ton of 2E. But, you know...
2E is so much simpler than 1E.
Okay, interesting.
It's a lot easier.
Comparative to 5E, it seemed not too much, but maybe like 15%, 20% more kind of crunchy and structured, which I think typically is fun. But 2 questions for first E, like how would you kind of compare it maybe to 5E? What are some big differences? And then specifically for the bard, like how does roleplay interaction work mechanically in 1E? Because in my mind, that's what went disastrously and almost led to violence. But I want to know the actual truth.
Gotcha. Well, as a general rule, 1E has rules for everything. We joke about how how is there not a rule for this? This is 1E. There's a rule for everything. And that really is, it's very, very specific. And it would be great if the one thing I like about 2E is the 3-action economy, where it's just you have 3 actions. Whereas in 1E, it comes down to is it a standard action? Is it a move action, a swift, a free, an immediate, and then how all that balances together. And your move action is that, and then you have to have a special feat to be able to move, attack, and move. Where you can't, it's one or the other. It's very, very gritty. Yeah,
so the standalone first edition expectation is that you cannot move and attack on the same turn.
You can move and attack, but you can't move, attack, and then move again.
Move again. Got it.
Yeah, unless you have a special feat for it. And so everything is very self-contained as far as the rules go. And you have to do anything outside of just these self-contained things, you have to have feats, or you have to have special abilities.
And are those easy to come by? Like, are there more feats and special abilities kind of built into the character building?
Yes. There's
too much.
It feels like yes, exactly. It almost feels like it's an unlimited number of feats. But that's one of the things my players love so much. And I have a table of guys who love to come up with a concept of a character, and literally anything you think of, you can create in 1E. Really? Because you can, between the traits and the feats and the your ancestry and race and class and all, it all comes together. And I mean, if you listen long enough, you start to hear. We actually have Undarkling Discussions, which is our follow-up to every episode. We do kind of a breakdown of that episode,
the unpacking
for our for our patrons. And we have a special section called Rules as Broken, and that's where we show people and talk about these builds that my players have created for future characters that should really be broken.
RAB. Honestly, it's hysterical. Like, that's a potential tattoo for me, like over my throat. Yeah. I'm like, that is not Rules as Broken. Like, what?
But just the ideas they come up with, there's just so much, and I think that's what turns a lot of people off is there's so much you could easily just be like, I can't look at anymore. How am I supposed to pick what goes with my character? And it really just comes with playing it a lot and building characters in a lot. You start to remember, there's a feat that does this. I can use my charisma instead of my bab for this kind of an attack. And because I'm a high charisma player, that gives me a bigger bonus for that. It's literally limitless to what you can create and the kind of characters you can build. Which is, I think, what makes it the most fun. It is hard to play, and there's no way to keep all the rules in your head. There's just no way. We are always, that's why we have an editor for
that
our episodes.
Is
great. Because we're always stopping and going, wait, what do the rules say about that again?
Yeah,
There's a lot of rules to look up.
Yeah, exactly. Can that be said? It's like, I want to play an accountant, buries people with paperwork. That sounds really fun to me. Like, I can get into definitely the character building, right? The small tweaks, those little choices. I think that's what brings a lot of people to role-playing games, period, right? Is a version of like being able to sort of redress, reskin, reflavor your own external experience.
For sure.
But I wish it's so hard to describe a rule set, right? Because you're like, well, dude, it's a compendium, and I just got done telling you that after 7 years, I still don't have them all memorized,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and that is rad. I think I've played Cypher, I've played Cthulhu, and I've played a lot of mostly 5e, but a ton of D&D. I also have gotten to the very end of Baldur's Gate 1, so I feel in touch with second edition rules. But the fact that you're still playing first edition and prefer that and love that, to me is really speaks very highly of the system. Is the table that you've played with, are they kind of like you in the sense that they've sampled different systems and different versions, or are they kind of just first edition purists and they're kind of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
Well, I know that my husband Zach, who's one of the players and our editor, he has played D&D 5e, and he's has some of the original D&D books because he was playing years and years ago, and I believe Nick, who is Alexis, our little halfling on the podcast, I believe he's dabbled in some before, but Madison I think has only done 1E and I've only done 1E. We did a one shot in 2E just to try it out before, and though we liked it, we really felt like it was missing a lot of that character building. You kind of felt pigeonholed into a certain direction. Once you picked something, it's like, well, you have to take these other feats now, whereas it wasn't just
that second edition we're talking about.
Yes.
Or 5E.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, 2E. So that, I think that's kind of, we gave it a shot, and we just love the character creation so much in 1E that we've just kind of stuck with it. So
yeah, I mean, say no more. Like it's a great feeling to know what you like to run and then have people that also want to do that.
Yeah.
Richter, I did not detect magic on all of that, but I still have not beaten, is it Sephiroth? I'm about to murder myself and this guy. But I'm at the Thieves' Hideout. I basically don't let me pull you into how complicated my gaming schedule has become with a 1-year-old. But that's beautiful, Amanda. I love that. Do you have yourself experience with 5e?
I don't. I've never played D&D. I've only done Pathfinder 1E. I'm not that I'm not open to it. It's just everybody I'm surrounded by right now are all Pathfinder people, so that's just kind of what I've stuck with.
And have you gotten to play much? Like what was your first experience? Was it GM or player?
Player.
Okay, cool.
And that was back in 2016 when I was the bard, my first introduction.
Of course. Sorry, I didn't know that was the first one.
No, that's fine. And what's funny is after I died, we were level 2, maybe level 3. I had serious thoughts of maybe not jumping back into it, and I'm glad I got talked back into it, because my next character, I was a gunslinger.
Okay.
And really found my groove. I built the character wrong, and luckily my GM was nice and let me rebuild it after we played a few sessions, because I'm like, oh, I did not do this right at all.
Yeah. Well,
I totally handicapped myself.
Like until you kind of pull off the lot, it can be hard to know how it drives, like in the actual real world.
When you're new too, especially, yeah.
How? Because I swear there are other questions, but I just need to know. Like, how did your bard die?
I was killed by a goblin dog.
A goblin dog?
It was a large cat. No, my party member who was trying to keep me safe was killed by a goblin dog, and then I ran away and ended up in a nest for a very large cat. I can't even remember what it was, but it was just this massive cat, and it just ripped me to shreds. And then my other 2 party members tried to run away across a bridge, and the bridge collapsed, and they fell into the water and drowned.
That's great. Sounds like this GM had the night of his life. He was just like, guys, peace. Actually, no, you don't. Bridge collapsed. Zoinked, you've been catted. That's beautiful.
And that's actually right when that happened. It was almost a total party kill. Only one player made it out of that alive. And so then we ended up doing a GM switch, and our good friend James started GMing, and then with him we actually started the Dimension Door podcast that started right around the time of COVID, and we did Reign of Winter, which was an AP. Yeah, James Schwartz. I don't know if there's got to be people who know James Schwartz. He's fantastic GM. Does great voices. He's just amazing. And I was so privileged to be a player at his table. He was really good at pulling everybody in and keeping everything exciting. But so we did that for a few years, and then I'm like, you know what? I wanted to try my hand at GMing because that seemed fun. And so I did co-GMing with my husband, and we did
What a great way to touch in. Okay. And this is 2020, 2021. You've been playing for 3-4 years.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And we were doing the Iron Gods AP through Pathfinder 1E.
Okay.
And that's all about like a starship has crashed to the earth in Galarian. And so you're finding all this tech stuff. It's a very, old tech, aliens and robots and that kind of thing.
But
so that was
like
a lot of fun.
Medieval Europe-esque.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
sick.
Exactly. And so I got some time co-GMing that, and then I started co-GMing Giant Slayer with him as well, which is another AP. And then this podcast, Severed Fate, that we do, this was my first time GMing all by myself.
Amazing.
And we did season 1, which was 2 years ago, and that was about 45 episodes long. We took a break for book 2, thinking we weren't actually going to keep recording. But halfway through book 2, we were just playing ourselves at the table. We realized how much we enjoyed recording the podcast and pandering to an audience.
Yeah, you're like,
so
you're like, I need those steaks.
Yeah, exactly.
I need those back end steaks.
So we picked it back up for what we're calling season 3, which is what's now airing. Where tomorrow is actually episode 11 is dropping for season 3, which is probably what you listened to the most of.
Yeah.
That season there. And it's been a fantastic journey. I've learned so much. The boys, they keep me on my toes. They are probably
as they should.
I don't
as
know.
Every good table should. There's no rest.
They go off the rails all the time. They never do what I expect, and so it's a great lesson in just being able to shift gears and switch directions and, just play along with whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, no, there's so much there, Amanda, but I love how you style that. And a lot of it sounds like it's really rooted in, that almost, that like undeniable, intangible aspect of knowing that you enjoy something or would prefer to do something, and it's interesting. I feel like a lot of creatives, a lot of people that like make something or collaborate on something can know that feeling well because it's so kind of inherent and intrinsic and hard to label, right? Or like quantify. But I have a lot of questions about that. Let me first just say, Fuzka, thank you for getting in here. I love you, girl. Shout out. I won't make the mistake of shouting at Fuzka because who knows what'll happen with my chat shout out. But know, Fuz, that I did refresh it, and I'm pretty confident it would and will work. So we got that in the chamber. Hoi Lepa, good seeing you. Get in here. Amanda plays a ton of Pathfinder First Edition. And agreed, Richter. It sounds like Cats vs. NPCs was really the first conflict in the modern day meme war that has swept the internet, has swept us all up. I have had characters die. None of them have died in a way that has felt cute or clean. And I feel like dying to a giant cat in their sort of space. Yeah. There's worse ways to go.
There's better ways too.
Gently in my villa is how I would prefer.
There you go.
Man, that's hysterical. And agreed. Yeah, I'm definitely trying to scorpion other GMs. This James fellow that you referenced, Amanda.
Yeah.
Is that someone how would we know them?
Well, he's done a lot of guest spots on other podcasts because he's got such great voice work. He's really good at character voicing. I know he was actually nominated for being a goat on a podcast in the
that speaks volumes.
It was pretty crazy.
He's like, I can play the entire barnyard. I can play every animal found on a farm.
Yeah. But he hasn't been active the last couple of years. After we stopped, we actually ended our Dimension Door podcast after we had a total party kill. Oh. And then everybody had realized
co-DMing, or was that were you?
I was a player actually. I was a rat folk. I was a little rat folk who had a giant weasel. Her name was Marge, and she had a Minnesotan accent. And those bad guys, I'm gonna go stick them with my sword.
And the sword was the weasel?
Oh no, she had an actual sword, but she was riding on the back of her giant weasel. Oh gosh darn it! Yeah,
that is the only thing.
The cutest, sweetest thing.
I need her protecting the Great Lakes. That's and how did the TPK go down?
We were killed by a nightmare.
The horse.
No, just a nightmare.
Oh, a dream. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was like a physical representation of a nightmare. We were in the Baba Yaga's hut, one of the rooms in her hut had this nightmare creature in it, and we did not confront this thing in the right way at all, and we just all bad decisions across the board, and it just killed all of us.
Golly,
it was rough.
I'm seeing that Richter's saying the monster was an animate dream.
There you go.
Is that a spell?
No, I think
like
it's an actual monster template. Okay. Yeah.
That's rowdy.
Yeah.
Man, it's so funny because my brain is going 1,000 directions because I want to ask. There's many things I want to tuck into. The TPK aspect, I think, is a tough one for any DMGM, and really any player. It can go a lot of different ways. I also just have some questions because it sounds like you've been playing with the same table for a minute, and that to me is like so beautiful and leads to, like anything, a sports team, a band, a dance ensemble. Like there's this greater, deeper level of unspoken communication and sort of vibe, right? That's so beautiful. And so maybe I'll pin that in just with the TPKs. Like, have you ever been running the game with a TPK card?
I have not TPK'd my party, though I got really close at the end of our season 1 of Severed Fate, where there's only 3 guys at my table, and I have them playing Gestalt characters, and I can explain what that is if you don't know. But and I let them be Gestalt because there's only 3 of them. But 2 of the 3 of them died at the end of that book, and so the other one retired. She was like, I'm not, or he was like, I'm not. This character's not going to do anything else because it was the character he was playing a female, and her siblings, which were the other 2 characters, died. Gotcha. And yeah, he's like, no, she wouldn't do anything else. So that character was retired because the other 2 died, and then we started with a whole new cast of PCs for the next book.
Interesting. Okay, what an ending to season 1. How many episodes is season 1? 45? You said
about 45. I think it's like 42, and then we had sometimes we do special one-shots for Christmas. Cool. And one of them we did during book 1, and it was the plight before Christmas, and it was all about COVID.
I love it.
And Santa Claus getting COVID.
Oh, it was about COVID? Oh, great.
It was about Santa Claus getting COVID.
You're like, it's time to fight the That's so great. It's like we shrink down like we're on Mrs. Frizzle's school bus, and we prepare for combat. Man, like TPKs, I feel like can go a lot of ways, and I feel like player deaths can go a lot of ways. And in general, this probably isn't a problem with you guys because you know each other. There's this deep level of back and forth, a lot of shared experience, right? You keep coming back, but for me, whenever I've had characters die, it has either been like it's never really felt that great. There's been times where it's been, galvanizing and perhaps has added a layer or a depth to the story, to the stakes that maybe ultimately did feel satisfying. But I will say that in every case, even most recently, we're a pretty long-standing. I've been running this campaign a little over 4 years, but it started in a module and spawned into a ton of homebrew. A lot of it influenced by the characters and their backstory, and of course, their choices and mishaps. But it was a partial party kill, and it was pretty brutal in the sense that there was like finger of death, and there was some casting of corpses into like the pit of hell. There's like some really kind of final feeling moments with some of the characters where it's like, how do we get that soul back? But even then, it didn't feel that great, but it felt amazing to honor like the encounter that I'd built, or honor what felt like the honest and genuine tactics of the creature, the villain, the player. Yeah. Do you struggle with finding that balance? Like how do you both, I guess two-parter, how do you balance specifically an encounter or a combat? Mm-hmm. And then secondly, like how do you put yourself kind of in the shoes of the big NPCs?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
As far as encounters go, they're pretty well built for you in the APs that Pathfinder puts together for you,
sick.
which is
Cool.
nice. They're built to be a pretty level to go with the NPCs of the level that they're at. I do have to sometimes put an advanced template on things because the party is Gestalt. And for anybody listening who doesn't know what Gestalt is, it's basically I allow my players to have two classes that they build simultaneously, and they don't take any negatives. They get the best of each, the best stat between the two. So if they're a bard and a wizard, say for instance, and the wizard has a higher will save than the bard does, they get the wizard's will save. But they get the benefits of both classes without taking the lower score from whichever one has the lower stat.
And is it played by one player character?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
So their one character is full bard and full wizard at the same time, or full bard and what I told them was, if you're going to play Gestalt, bard has to be one class. You have to be a bard, and then you can pick something else.
Unbelievable. I love that. That is hysterical to me. I don't even know why that's so funny to me. And what kind of motivated that? Was it like a passion for bard, or you feel like that played into the lore and story of the world the most, or?
Well, in Pathfinder, Bard is it's not as strong. It's hard to build a super strong Bard. Whereas some of these other classes, you can min-max them and really get a lot of a road out of them and become pretty powerful. With the Bard, I wanted to kind of no, we've never played Gestalt characters before, except for maybe one shot we did for Christmas years and years ago, and it was so fun.
Where does the term Gestalt come from?
I think it's a Pathfinder term.
Okay, and like it's like Justalt.
It's Gestalt.
Huh.
Gestalt. Gestalt.
Okay, cool.
And maybe I'm saying it wrong. I've only ever seen it written.
No.
Could
I've
be
never
Gestalt,
heard
I
or seen the word in the world. I'm trying to like track it. That's amazing. Originally, I thought you said
yeah, but what it means is
Gestalt.
you
I was
get
like,
to actually be two classes at the same time
I
and
love
build them both simultaneously, instead of normally if you multi-class and you level up, you have to pick which class you're leveling up that level.
Right.
Whereas in this case, you're leveling them both up at the same time every single level.
Right. And man, that's
And it's because there's only 3 of them for a 4-player campaign, and I knew that they'd be outmatched a little bit, so I wanted to give them a little bit of a jump on and have a wider variety of tools to pull from for their character.
That seems very wise, because they're still taking singular one-person turns in combat.
Yes.
But each time pulling from a reservoir of 2 different classes for problem solving, for attacks. I love it.
Yes.
You know, I've run some straight up like one-on-one sessions. They've been really, really fun. Many of them have been streamed. But be it like I'm running a 3-person one right now, for example, I often am introducing almost like sidekick type characters, right? Like maybe one of the local clerics like needs to, go as far as Neverwinter, and so they'll walk some of the way, whatever it would be, that, a local group of bandits. But whenever you empower the player with more or less 2 toolkits instead of 1, I feel like it also opens up what you, the DM, are able to play with, to throw at.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That sounds right. I'm curious, I wonder if anyone in the chat has played any Pathfinder. I know you have, Richter, and I see you comparing it to the original multi-classing. 3.5 was Unearthed Arcana. Have you ever run games for strangers?
No, I did do a kids campaign for my son and his friends for a little while.
How'd that go?
That was a lot of fun. Oh, it was great. I love kids. They think so out of the box, and they come up with the most unique answers to problems. And for me at my table anytime as a GM, I'm all about the rule of fun, and sometimes I'll even forego rules as written because, you know what, this is just a really fun idea, and I don't care if the rule says you can't do it. I'm going to let you, because the rule of fun is, I think, what makes the table just a joy to be at.
Agreed.
And that's like twofold when you're GMing kids, and so that's the closest I've come to GMing strangers was my son, and then his friends dad also joined. So
That's cool.
and I didn't know them very well, but that was a great time.
That's beautiful. Obviously, like, you love your son, so that makes it easy. But to then have that kind of excitement of new players that are also children,
Yeah.
I've experienced a couple different versions of that, but there is a very fun and beautiful one where there's like this sense of like, oh, well, can I do this? Can I do that? And that to me can be kind of contagious because it's so outside the norm of understanding the mechanics, the action economy.
Yeah.
You know, part of the reason I ask, I've been running more games, I guess really just on start playing more than anything. So I've run, you know, several one shots. I've run a couple like 4 or 8 episode arcs. And for the most part, it has been groups that all know each other, that are like coming in with 4 people or 5 people or whatever. And so it's me just getting to know them individually, but also like the vibe of the group, and then we just rip. But I'm playing in a game right now, or I'm running a game right now that is strangers, is like people that don't know each other. There's a 4th player that's probably going to come in that knows one of them, and I guess 2 of the people like know each other but don't live together, don't overlap a lot. And it has been just an interesting challenge because the tone and vibe, everyone's lovely, like we're having a good time, but sort of the almost the language of both the gameplay and the PCs is not consistent,
right?
Or I guess it's becoming consistent, but it's not
everybody has the same idea in their head of what the
the
game
world
should be,
almost exactly,
and then trying to marry that all together.
And I've never been in that position, and we're quite well past it. I mean, this was more kind of first session, second session feeling it, but like I'm just curious if you've experienced versions of that, and / what it's been like to run, you know, let's say a classic Pathfinder fantasy setting. I've never played, so I don't know, and then move into a, you know, spacecraft sort of strange tech version with the same party. Is it pretty fluid? Do you find your players or you struggling with that new kind of world or tone, or not really?
Fortunately at my table, just because we know each other so well, we don't run into that too much. I think the biggest example of that on my side is when we first started Carrion Crown, which is the AP that we're doing for Severed Fate. Because when we picked it, because we all got together and, what do we want to play? And they're like, let's do a horror campaign. And I'm like, oh, great. I love horror. Horror is like my wheelhouse. And I'm ready to go dark and dirty and gritty. And if you listen to season 1, episode 1, the intro, you'll understand what my vision of this podcast was going to be as far as horror.
Fate. Session.
Yeah, Severed Fate.
Book 1.
Season 1, episode 1, the intro. There were people who told me they couldn't listen to the whole thing because of how gritty and disgusting it got, because it was basically a description of a prison riot. The whole basis of book 1 was a haunted prison. Oh, wow.
No. I just love the idea of a prison riot. Wow. I'm like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So describing this prison riot in the sense that the players themselves were kind of like their viewpoint if they were one of the prisoners, and the descriptions and the prison riot and how, you know, it ended with basically that the viewpoint of the person that I was, you know, describing burning to death. Because they got caught and trapped by an elevator that fell, and then the whole room caught on fire. And I did all my research because I'm, you know, big into that. And so my descriptions of the body burning and what you would experience as a person burning to death, maybe, I don't know if I went too far, but it was pretty heavy. And so that's what I was thinking. And then because I, like I said, love horror.
Yeah.
My birthday is just days shy of Halloween, so everything in my life has really been horror themed, and I've always loved it. And so when we started, that was my vision of what this was going to be, was a very dark, gritty horror campaign. And it didn't take long before I realized just the guys around my table, one, they know each other really, really well, so they have a good history together, but they're all comedians.
Oh, got
They're
it.
just they make jokes out of everything. And so after a while, I realized that yes, they wanted to play a horror campaign, but my vision was not the same as theirs. They were looking to really just have more fun with it. I still bring the dark and the gritty, but we're probably like the funniest horror podcast out there.
That's great. You're like describing burning flesh. They're like, sounds like it's well done. You're like, enough.
Exactly.
Enough.
Yes.
Man.
That's what I get. So I had to adjust my expectations of how the table was going to play, because when, in my opinion, when you're the GM, you're there for the players. And if they have like, this is the direction we want to go with the table and how we want to play this game, I'm like, all right, I guess we're doing this. Let's do this. And I'm just kind of shift that tone, but try and still bring the horror when I can.
No, for sure. And like that, because the DM's a player too, right? I mean, like they're and not that you're not enjoying it or like laboring through it. It sounds like me, a lot of the fun is also in a bit of the prep or a bit of the spooling out of like what might be, if that, then what else, But agreed, and that rhythm does kind of naturally find itself. I again don't want to go into too much detail about this reference point, but it's been cool to see the players, and more specifically the players making their characters find that middle ground, and even at the table it's starting to feel a little bit more clear in terms of like how they want to react and use their language to kind of create a vibe. Lepa smells like granny fresh baked meat cookies. I can't say that it doesn't. But I hope it doesn't. But it probably does. So, aptly put, Lepa. Do you prefer, and I mean, it sounds like it's a bit of both, but do you only run, I forget what they're actually called, essentially modules? Do you prefer and exclusively run pre-made campaigns, or like kind of how do you like to approach starting a new campaign?
Well, I do like the modules just because it's less work for me.
Sure. No,
and
totally.
I work full time. I am, a high level manager in a very stressful job. And so my brain power is limited.
Yes.
Especially right now. So, because I'm on the customer service side of things in the construction industry. And that's a whole other thing. But because my brain power is limited, I would love to homebrew stuff. And I've had ideas and thoughts and have started working on some homebrew ideas. But the actually putting it all together, it is a lot of work. And I applaud the people who do that and just the creativity that can go into that and making a whole world. But right now, I'm really brain-wise only able to really run these modules because it gives you all of the information.
Yeah.
And it has all of the enemies pre-built, and it has the storyline of where you go, and it gives you the maps and all of that, which makes it a lot easier on me with where I'm at. And if I ever got to a place where I was not doing what I'm doing and had more brain power available, I would absolutely be doing probably more homebrew. And I've created a Christmas one-shot before that I ran for my friends, which was so much fun. People who had never played Pathfinder before, I made a very simplified version of it, even more simple than 2E or even D&D 3.5 or 5E. I tried to really pare it down to the basics, and everybody was a different Christmas ornament on the tree, and it was this whole travel up the Christmas tree and run into all of these different enemies, an army of angels, and the Christmas lights went out and you got to figure out how to turn them back on and all that kind of fun stuff. So that was a blast to introduce new people to TTRPG without having to get into the crunch of Pathfinder. And I had this cool Christmas tree map, 3D map that I built out of styrofoam, and so it was all very physical, and it was just a great time.
But that does sound like a great time. I didn't realize that it was in person. That's even more fun with that kind of analog representation. You're ripping the lights out. It is. But you say without kind of the crunch of first edition, and I think I just missed it. Is that because you were kind of playing like a streamlined version of Pathfinder?
Yeah, and my husband helped me, put it together too. We were like, well, what is like the basics? You obviously need your strength, dex, con, wisdom, intelligence, charisma, that kind of thing. But why don't we just pre-make characters for everybody in a very basic way, and here's some basic abilities you can do, here are the skills you're good at as your character, instead of having a list of all the skills and then different levels or whatnot. We were just like, yeah, let's just really pare it down.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you could compare it to anything, any system specifically. It was just a very stripped down basic, to help people who have just never done anything like this before be able to just look at a single sheet and know exactly what their character can and can't do, and then be able to just run with it and have fun.
No, that is important. Like, onboarding can be, I mean, as we know with any new board game, you're like, oh my God, what exactly is happening? I get that, man. I love that. With these modules, because like, a lot of what I find most compelling about DMing, and also most challenging, is really genuinely wanting to feel like simply a facilitator of the game, as opposed to like the ex machina factor, or the kind of wizard behind the curtain. And
my players like to call me God.
God, there you go. Yes, Alex also preferred that.
I am the God.
I do like it when my players pray in front of me, but not to me. No, I totally get that. God, can I please have a +1 dagger?
Right.
But like I guess, and it would help if I was more familiar with these actual plays. But what does it look like whenever you're, prepping a villain, or, taking a faction of this nobility that has ill intent, or whatever placeholder MacGuffin we're putting forward for a potential antagonist? It sounds like a lot of these are well set out and colored and styled in these APs, which is dope. But even just you prepping the energy, prepping the presentation, the decision making, right? Like, what does that look like for you?
I always try to incorporate the players' backstories into the game and create a through line for them. So that way there's something always driving them to move forward. And that's how I always, what's nice about having the AP is you kind of have the whole story laid out in front of you, so you can figure out ahead of time how you want to put those threads into the story for each of the PCs. And so that I think a lot about that when I'm prepping these, BBEGs or these big encounters that they're coming across, is how does this relate to the character and the journey they're on, and how is this going to propel them forward into the next adventure, part of the adventure. And just thinking about what there are times when I adjust things, and I may say this is, I'm not going to use this particular spell this guy has, because I think it'd be more effective if this spell were used. So I do some adjustments to them as I go. So sometimes I may homebrew a little bit just to make it more, to make it connect more with the players and their journeys as well. But yeah, it's always looking at how I can keep that through line going, and keep that the reason the PCs have for being on this adventure, keep it important and at the forefront and pushing things forward.
And are in track on all that? I love that. Like, or do you have I know you have a background in performance and in theater. Do you have a background like in writing, or just sort of a love of fiction? Because it seems very akin to, sort of storyboarding and kind of drafting. Not that you need to. I'm just curious.
Love reading, love writing. I've not done anything professional writing wise. I was grew up in doing music, like I said, choir, orchestra, band, nerd. I was a music teacher as my first career. Actually, I was a music teacher, choir director. Did that for quite a few years in Arizona at the Mesa Arts Center, and had a young women's choir that I directed for a long time. And that was a blast. And then I got caught up in the corporate world, somehow fell into it, and have worked my way up the corporate ladder. It's completely opposite of what I normally do, because I am a very creative type person. So it plays to more the business side of how my brain works. but I do love reading. I do love reading fiction, all kinds. I mean, gosh, everything. I off the top of my head, what was the thing? I think Princess Bride. I reread that. I think the most recently was the Princess Bride, but yeah, I mean, all the Harry Potter books and all of the J.R.R. Tolkien series that he's got out there. And I actually do voice acting for Seldon Crisis podcast,
Heck yeah.
which is all about, oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. Isaac Asimov and the Foundation series.
I don't know. I feel like I'm very familiar
Isaac
with
Asimov,
that name.
they call him the father of sci-fi.
Okay.
He was a long time ago writer. But yeah, he had a lot of great sci-fi writings, and Joel, who does the Seldon Crisis podcast, breaks down the Foundation series and how it relates to modern day, and because it's a very political type of sci-fi drama. And so he tapped me. He actually heard me on Severed Fate podcast, and he's like, "Oh, I like that voice." And he's like, reached out to me. He's like, "By chance, are you interested, or would you know anybody who does voice acting?" And I'm like, "Well, I'd be interested. I love voice
here
acting."
on the call. That's always so good, man.
So, but that's something I've always actually wanted to do. I've always wanted to be a voice actress, and that's. I've never had the opportunity to really jump into it too much, except for recently with my own GMing and all of the NPCs I get to play, and then of course the that Seldon Crisis podcast.
That's rad. I look forward to checking out more of that. And I mean, it seems like you've got a good setup and a really good grasp. Like even just running a game gets you forces you right to do some type of mask work, right? And
and then when they walk into the town square for a Wheel Day market, where it's a farmer's market and everybody in the entire town is gathered, and they walk around and want to talk to everybody. Yeah. And you're like, okay, here we go.
No,
the woman of a million voices.
For sure. Yes, I think it's very helpful for me sometimes to group up people. Where I'm like, yeah, there's a group of old men over here that almost speaks as one. Yeah, I found myself with that last night where we were moving through a space, and it's almost like they were going person to person, like looking for the weakest link. You know, they already had like a couple options and now wanted to make sure. And part of that, I think, also is just getting to know this table. But I love all that in terms of that seed of character backstory and kind of tending to it as you grow and develop by way of this module, right? That does have maybe some looser or firmer, depending on where it is, constraints or suggestions, however we style it. But I think that flexibility in terms of reskinning or repurposing something, right? Definitely whenever you get into the nitty gritty of like even weapon type or certainly spell type, like what type of magic, what type of casting, would fit thematically with this person. So I love those kinds of questions. Like, can you maybe give us a more like hands-on example of, I don't know any of these modules, but let's say the one that you're crash landing or, a ship has crash landed.
Yeah.
You're sort of in modern, sort of fantasy worlds, and now new tech is spreading out. And I don't know, of course, the through lines, the first, second, third act, or however it's set up. But if you're taking a character's backstory, you, of course, have the box narrative. You're getting these 2-3 backstories, right? Are you going back and forth with them a lot? Do they send you one PDF and you're like, cool, I'm going to make some versions off of this? Do they give you very little and you have to supply it? Like, what does that backstory integration look like in the prep?
I let my players decide how much backstory they want to give me, and a lot of times the less they give me, the better, because then I have more to work with.
Yeah, I love when they're like, no, totally.
Oh gosh, but I'm trying to think of. Let's see. The last time I played Iron Gods was a while ago. And actually, I switched from GM to a player. I was co-GMing with my husband, and then he's like, you know what, I want to GM this by myself. And I'm like, I'd love to make a player or a character. So I'm actually a character now.
Let's go.
In it.
But you've seen a lot of the notes. That's big.
Yes.
That's big.
I haven't seen a lot of the future notes. So we're at the point in the book where I don't know what's happening.
He locked me out of the PDF. My access was revoked.
Yeah. Well, these adventure paths it's actually a series of 6 books.
Oh, and I thought you were just referring to them as books, like in a creative narrative sense. So
no, you're saying they're actually
standalone adventure books. Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and each adventure path is 6 books. And each book takes maybe about a year, sometimes 2 years to play. So you could be playing the same story from beginning to end. You could go for so many years doing
20
it.
years. Yeah, I mean, that's like...
Yeah. We played the adventure path when we did Rise of the Rune Lords. That was a 6-book adventure path, and we did that in 2 years. We went through it fast. I was surprised how fast we went through it. And in this case, for Severed Fate, it is also a 6-book adventure path, and we're in book 3 right now, which is what season 3 is.
Got it.
So the availability and the story to weave characters' backstories into the gameplay is just massive, because there's so much that happens over the course of 6 books, and you can have threads that lead to maybe one book is a bit more catered to a PC, one PC over another because of the location it takes place at.
Got it.
I'll have a PC maybe say, I'm from this country and my parents fought for these resistance people, this group of people back in the day, and so I'm like, oh, okay, well that actually, believe it or not, comes up in book 3, and they don't know it comes up in book 3. So I'm going to lead this trail where they're going to meet people and then end up having to infiltrate maybe their own parents' a group of people that were this resistance fighters or whatnot, because they have to on the course to get this BBEG down the line somewhere. So there's a lot of opportunity to really weave things in and out, and that's another great thing about character creation in Pathfinder is they give you the ability to choose traits that allow you to just pick things from the world of Golarion, which is where Pathfinder takes place, is this world called Golarion instead of Earth.
Cool.
And you can those traits can feed directly into storylines. The writers for Pathfinder have done a really good job of incorporating so many different aspects into each book that it's...
And Amanda, just
if you really want to... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I love this. Like, by aspects, do you mean storylines?
Yeah, storylines, the people you meet, the groups of people you come across, whether it is, like I said, a rebellious faction or a royalty, a group of royals, or something like that. It all just it feels like a real world because it's all so interconnected in how they interact with each other. And so if you have a player who picks a trait that says, you know what, I'm from Irison, so I can cast cold spells easier, than this, and then you could be like, well, you're actually right at the border between Ustalav and Irison and these two countries, and so when you're here, you actually have a greater ability to use your cold spells because you're much closer to the source of origin for this, or something like that. It feels like an infinite amount of options to really weave stories into the main story created.
That sort of geolocal boosting is built into this AP.
Yes.
Sick.
Yes.
There was a DM out of Chicago, his name's Grifumbly, that I interviewed last week or 2 weeks ago. Really interesting and talented guy. And he, among other things, he does a ton of homebrew. In fact, I'm pretty sure almost exclusively. But a lot of what he enjoys about that process is, and I never got the actual app from him, but is almost like creating genuine regional phenomenon. Be they weather, be they, the greater faith of Helm giving more weight to a paladin of that order in one place than it might across the map. And, I've toyed with that with, enchanted areas, cursed areas, magic having a different effect, wild magic, whatever. But I've certainly toyed with weather to the max. Like I love a good weather table. I just love it when my players are blinded by fog, by rain, by dust. Like these are my ones. But that idea of like playing with the locality of a god and its influence,
yes,
to me is super rad.
Yeah.
Like I want more of that. Are you familiar with Dark Sun?
I'm not.
It is. I barely am, and I'm about to run it. No, but it's a good. Neither one of us needs to be for this conversation. But Dark Sun is a very OG kind of adventure setting for. It originally came out for 2nd edition D&D, and Richter actually hooked me up with one of the sources for the 2e. I'm basing it off of the 4th edition D&D book, but regardless, across the way, it is a Mad Max, Dune-esque kind of Arrakis, like it's sort of a wasteland, where sort of the life and the texture and the culture is easily missed, right, in the to the naked eye. But I've found that toying with my characters' backstories, that like in a way that I haven't felt whenever I was playing in more of a classic Faerun, more of a classic, Lord of the Rings-esque setting, is dealing with some of those familial histories, some of those personal histories of what would it be to be in a world so devoid of comfort, of guaranteed necessity, of food, of water, of steel, and I was actually thinking the same thing, Richter. He says that you would probably love it because it has a strong horror streak, which is true.
Ooh, nice.
It is a very intense kind of setting. But it's just, to me, some of the most satisfying and colorful ways that a game comes together is whenever the DM has a strong command on the AP or the adventure guide, and then the players, not necessarily in an overly detailed way, but they can be, provide enough of a rich kind of living backstory and off-the-page character that it pretty reasonably makes sense where they go, where they're woven, how they're introduced, right? Are there any things like, things that 5 years ago you did differently and now you do them this way? Or, specifically with, let's say, incorporating backstory, or just the brass tacks, it's Tuesday, we play on Wednesday. How does that prep look like for you?
Yeah. Definitely things have changed. I give myself a lot more flexibility and freedom. I'm not so hard on myself.
Amen. Keep that up. Keep that up.
That was a tough one to get over. I have a very strong sense of perfectionism.
I know. Yeah. Well, you're a singer. You're like, there's only one right note.
Right. But I've gotten into a rhythm. It used to be that I very much pencil and paper. I mean, Gen X must be, part of that part of me where I'm very much a paper pencil person. My character sheets are all paper pencil. I don't do anything digital. But I have transferred over. I do a lot on OneNote now. A lot of my notes.
OneNote is a Windows like Google equivalent, right? Like a Drive equivalent.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. And it's been really invaluable. And what I'll do actually is once I'm done with an episode and we're done recording it, I'll actually be like, okay, you got to leave me alone for about an hour, because then I'll sit and I'll write a recap of what just happened and like the most important parts of it. Because at the beginning of every session, I recap the last session. Just to help, because sometimes it'll be a couple weeks before we play, and some details may be forgotten, things like that, and then sometimes there are things that I'm like, I know for a fact that they are not going to remember this, so I'm going to bring it up in the intro to remind them that they have this thing.
No, totally.
that they should probably use.
I do feel like the recap is a good, in a healthy way, a tipping of the DM's hand, where it's like, you motherfuckers need to remember this.
Yes,
you have the artifact, okay?
Right.
It's an option,
And my players probably need more reminders than a lot.
My wife would, yes, she knows. No, that's right. And so, like, is that, and I don't mean to cut you off, like, so part of the prep is like, okay, you're sitting down, post-session, you've drafted, like, a recap, right? To sort of keep that prescient. And then if you're moving towards the actual, okay, now we're a week later, we're 2 weeks later, are you like always writing an intro? Do you like to give yourself a page of what's going to happen, or do you just have the adventure book?
No, I actually write everything out, what I think is going to happen, and
right.
because it never goes the way I think it's going to go.
But the one time it does, isn't that the best? You're like,
yeah, I'm prepared.
I thought you might have tracked this beast to their lair.
Yep.
You know.
But a lot of my prep usually happens way beforehand. I will read through an entire book before we start playing the book, so I can get a really good idea of the through line and kind of what the story beats are. Cool. And then it depends on if the location is a sandbox type of location or if there's like a really strong story drive where it's like you're going to get this clue, which is going to lead you to here, to this clue, which is going to lead you to here. And there's that beat that you know they're going to have to hit to get to the next spot. Yeah. But if it's a sandbox, I will prep everything ahead of time. All the enemies they could possibly encounter in that area, all of the location settings, descriptions, those will all be, I'll have my one note and it'll be, these are all the locations. And then here's all the enemies. That way I can just, if they get to a certain place, no matter where they go, here's my description for that. And they run into this enemy, here's my enemy stat block for that.
Yeah.
But if it's like just a step-by-step instead of a sandbox, that I'll usually do as we go. I'll start prepping after the most recent session is done, because I'm like, okay, it's obvious this is the direction they're going. Now I can prep that area because I know they're going there. Or, you know, it's because sometimes they throw twists. We had in the first season, there was a series of 6 episodes where they went completely off book. They decided they were going to leave the town they were in.
The party is doing the twist.
The party, yes, the party, exactly. The party.
I thought you were saying the AP.
Leave no, they did go out of the AP completely. I had to write up homebrew episodes for 6 episodes because they decided they were going to leave this town that they're supposed to be in solving this mystery and go to a completely different city to bring this NPC back to life that they accidentally got killed. And they're like, well, we can't do it here because there's not a cleric high enough, so we're just going to leave. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm like, man. Well, we're going to have to take a couple weeks off because I'm going to have to write this.
Richter, that's so real. I love that you're like, I need to take some time off. Have you ever had the opposite happen where like you really had a ton of prep? You're like, man, we're about to go to the Feywild and do some shit. And then they get there. They're like, you know what? Like, should we go back to Waterdeep? Because like, I kind of forgot and maybe we could follow that one thread. Like, does that happen or rarely?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, no, that does happen. There, in fact, we just recorded our Darkling discussion, our behind the scenes for episode 11 that's coming out because we dropped that at the same time. And one of the things I talked about was, you know, there's this whole encounter that they have, and the encounter was supposed to happen after certain NPCs do some things. I had this whole thing planned out. It was really cool, but they just completely like bypassed all of that and went straight to the encounter. And I'm like, oh darn it, that was so cool. I had this whole thing written.
The stakes.
Awesome.
But the stakes.
Yeah.
They just like wander into the battle.
Yeah, pretty much.
Man, that I also know well. Where you're like, well, I wanted you to know who you were fighting, but let's just do it. Richter's right. That is in the job description. Well, Amanda, that's honestly, this is great. It's funny to me that back to back I've gotten, or not back to back, but like, you know, several times out of the most recent 3 or 4 interviews have been Pathfinder, and it's cool because it just seems like a sister game to D&D, but I really can get into the mechanics and crunch. So there's a lot there that is, you know, appealing to me, interesting to me. So like, I love like not only your command of it and your explanation of it, but just also kind of the intrinsic cosign that you and the whole table, you know, has enjoyed it to a degree that's where they've wanted, you know, to stay. Like that's sick. Well, let me know how I can come in and, you know, just sort of, I don't know, play one goblin for you that's sort of lost. He's coming out and killing some people.
We have a guest on every season. We had a guest on season 1. We have a guest that is going to be on season 3.
You got my Discord. I absolutely mean that. I would love that. I would love
Perfect.
absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
I would love it. I would have a blast, but I would love to have a reason to learn a little Pathfinder. You know what I mean?
That'd be great.
Sick. Sick. Yeah. Okay. Well, pin that. Unfortunately, I have to warn you that now, Amanda, it is time for us to move into the rapid fire.
Oh, okay.
Which I love it. Screw me out of the guest spot. Yes, dude. That's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm planning on doing, Richter. That was.
Oh, Lord Richter's been buttering me up for months now. For a guest spot.
He's like, do not jump me in line. Oh my gosh, no! I have had such a blast. I was a really talented DM named Mim allowed me to come in and play one of his villains, which was incredible. And I also got to play some Cthulhu with Insomnia, which was so much fun.
Nice.
I'm an actor and voiceover artist in LA, and a lot of my circle are performers and actors, unfortunately, and it's just been fun to occasionally tap people to come in and play minor BBGs or come in and play kind of a morally gray NPC. Because it's fun because they know each other and they're committed, but also, like nobody will give you their full passion and attention like an actor that hasn't worked in 6 months. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, whatever. I'm off book. I'm in character. Yeah. I'm in wardrobe. Let's rip. But Amanda, let's do this thing. The rapid fire is maybe my favorite part. Hard to pick, but like I told you before stream, there's no wrong answer. It's really just kind of like, left, right, up, down. I don't have a Pathfinder version of this, and I'll be honest, I never will. Okay, but
that's okay.
But so much of it is crossover. Like, follow your gut. If your instinct is to provide me with the comparable 2 Pathfinder choices and picking one of those, I give you my blessing to do so. But before we fully jump, are you prepared?
Sure.
Rapid fire. Let's do it. So if you're sitting down at the TTRPG table snack, sweet or savory?
Savory.
You prefer Dungeon Master or Game Master?
Game Master.
Game Master. Game Mistress.
Game Mistress. There you go.
Vampires or werewolves?
Ooh, werewolves.
Cowboys or pirates?
Pirates.
Gods or demons?
Ooh, gods.
Gods, let's go. I didn't expect that. If you can only roll 1 for the rest of time, you're rolling a D100 or a D12?
D12. They don't get to get used very often. D12s are great.
D12s are great. They're chunky. They're big.
Yes.
And I agree. I feel like they don't get enough spin. Giants or dragons?
Dragons.
Gnomes or halflings?
Gnomes. They're so much more fun.
I love when people are like the obvious choice. Elves or dwarves?
Dwarves.
Who's sexier, Tabaxi or a tiefling?
Ooh, Tabaxi.
Tabaxi, okay. Give it up for the catch. She dies by a cat and she can still give them their flowers.
There
I love that.
you go.
Are you more apt to start your campaign in a tavern or a brothel?
Brothel.
I love that. I've never actually done that, but it's always seemed like a hilarious place. It's like you're all working here in this pleasure house. Wizard or sorcerer?
Sorcerer.
Fuck yeah, okay. Cleric or warlock?
Ooh, let's go cleric.
A cleric, a bard, and a warlock all walk into a dungeon. Which one walks out?
The bard.
The bard? I love it. And how does the bard look as they walk out?
Like they've been pretty well beaten up.
You're like, they don't look great. They don't look great.
But they make it out.
But they are out. Agreed. If you had to jam yourself into one of the following player categories, which would it be? The edgelord, the min-maxer, the rules lawyer, or the actor?
The actor.
The actor? Okay, respect. I love it. You
Yeah.
are welcome at our table anytime. What's more annoying to you, a min-maxer or a rules lawyer?
Probably a rules lawyer.
Right? It's like, okay, man, you can only
Like I
have...
said, the rule of fun
Yeah.
is what's run at my table.
You're limited to 2 objections, all right? And then we'll move swiftly
There you
on.
go.
Can a player seduce a dragon?
Under very specific circumstances.
I love that. Fair enough. Can a dragon seduce a player?
Heck yeah.
I think so too. I'm not here to choose what your PC's into. Scarier thing to encounter in a dungeon. A small boy that's lost and somehow immaculately clean, or an old woman wearing rags that won't stop laughing.
Children are always so much creepier.
All right, I need to revisit some of these questions, make them more challenging, because it is about a 90% that the boy.
The kid wins out? Yeah.
And they're like, what is this child doing here? Fair enough. Okay, better BBEG, a level 20 wizard or a level 20 warlock?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to go wizard.
Sick. I love that. The backstory of how they became evil, I think, will be deep.
Yeah.
Better BBEG, a demon lord or a dragon king?
Demon Lord.
Demon lord. Okay, sick. I'd play that one there. Last question. Well, I don't know how it works in Pathfinder, so we'll see.
Okay.
If someone attempts to sleight of hand to steal from one of your players, do you use their passive perception or do you give them a perception check?
Perception check.
Okay. And is that rules as written in Pathfinder?
They actually have a specific skill called Sleight of Hand in Pathfinder that you can build up, and it's against the other person's perception. So you're using your Sleight of Hand skill check against.
Right. And does that every
the
time
opposing
prompt
perception.
a skill check from the person you're trying to rob?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, cool. Okay. You made it out clean, girl.
Woohoo!
You made it out clean.
Survived.
Well done. Well answered.
you.
Well rattled. Guys, give it up for GM Amanda.
Thank you.
I am truly grateful to have you on. The best way to sort of find and support Amanda is at, I'm blanking on it now. Is it severedfate.com?
.com.
Okay, my bad. I didn't know if the landing page was different than the name of it. Guys, go check out severedfate.com. Now I feel like I need to back up and start at like the beginning. So
Well,
maybe
if you guys all want to start with season 1, you can. I was a brand new GM and brand new at podcasting, so I forgot to introduce everybody in the first episode. So it might confuse you for a few minutes because everybody's being, speaking in character and then out of character, and you're like, wait, what's happening? So, but hang in there for a couple episodes, and it really starts to pick up, and we get our feet underneath us.
No, you got it.
And then it just goes up from there. But yeah, it's very great. The AP, the Carrying Crown AP for Pathfinder, is a series of horror tropes that you go through. Each book is a different classic horror story: ghost stories, werewolves, vampires, Cthulhu, and undead, liches. So there's a lot. We've already played. We're in book 3 now. Which was all werewolf themed, and book 1 was all ghost themed. Book 2 was kind of like a Frankenstein's monster type of adventure. So this is a fun like horror trope type of campaign.
I love it.
And we have a ton of fun. We're also on Patreon, and we do all kinds of we do a Monster v Monster for our patrons, where we actually roll and pick random monsters from the bestiary and pit them against each other,
like
and
representing
see who wins.
each backer kind of vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sick.
Yeah.
I love that.
So there's all kinds of fun stuff there. We, like I said, do our Darkling discussions where we discuss the breakdown of each episode, and we have the outtakes, and we go behind the veil to unpack some of the stuff that I maybe go through or have to deal with each episode.
That is helpful. Like not a lot of my games are fully streamed. That I stream a lot of prep where I'm like, building the world and the encounter, blah, blah. But I think sometimes seeing that and then seeing how it transpired can be unbelievably educational. I love that.
I feel like you guys, they totally missed this thing, and this went completely awry over here. And
yeah, exactly. You're like, who knew that was going to happen? I definitely did not. But it does make those moments where I'm able to literally take a clip from the prep and then have it verbatim happen in the session.
Yes.
Very gratifying. I'm like, okay.
Yes.
The blind squirrel has made it all the way home. Well, thank you, Amanda. This has, been a blast, but it's also been really, really just cool and informative. Like, I think that playing more systems and talking to more people that run more systems has really opened me up in terms of how I view an encounter or a solution or like ways to deal with the situation.
Yeah.
You know,
and
so
I would love to start learning different systems, more systems. I just, haven't had. I spend all my time getting ready to GM my, my sessions. So.
Well, I think rest easy that like, the Richter, you should all know. But I think rest easy that, if you're competent and fluent in Pathfinder 1, I think a lot of these other ones will be very easy to learn.
Yeah.
You're fluent in Latin, right? So I think the subsequent languages will trickle down. Well, guys, I love to end every D&D stream by rating another D&D content creator. Ideally, somebody that's doing like prep. That's always kind of like my preference. Sometimes it's hard to kind of rock in on an actual play. So we're going to be bopping in on a gentleman by the name of Ask the DM. I think it's all kind of there in the name. But they're building a world. They're building some characters. If you can, please pop in. It will make their day. I promise you that. It definitely does every time somebody rates me. Once I get over the elevated heart rate, I'm like, what's happening? What are all these sound cues? What is this? Join my Pendragon game if you want to speak Latin. I love that. I might have to brush it off. I did take one semester of Latin in 7th grade. Ecco Romani. All right.
Oh, wow.
I can go back. Chromie, I didn't see that was you. What's up, Chromie? Good seeing you. Get in here, dog. I know nothing about Pendragon, but if Richter is reacting that way, I think I'd like it. All right. Any last words, Amanda, before we dip out of here?
Just listen to us. We have my husband does all the editing, and he's fantastic. He's got a passion for really good sound design, and he does all the music and sound design and everything all on his own, and he spends hours and hours editing our podcast and makes us sound really good, way better than I think we really are. But if you enjoy well edited fun horror with still some dark moments, then please check us out. We'd love to. We're on Discord. We'd love to hang out with you and talk and see what you guys are up to. We've got a group of really cool people who are following us and have been for years, and we appreciate every single one of them, including Lord Richter.
Let's go. Give it up for Rix. Amanda, I promise you I will definitely be checking that out. Is everything linked through like the Patreon and y'all's Discord? Does it all come off of severedfate.com?
Yes, our first season is actually separate. That's under the Dimension Door heading, and you can still look up Severed Fate, but if you go to dimensiondoor.com, our first season is under that heading instead of the main Severed Fate heading. But season 3 is under severedfate.com.
Copy that. Cool.
And we release episode 11 tomorrow.
Let's go. And you guys release every month?
Every other week. Every other
week.
Thursday.
Amazing. Let's go. All right. Well, guys, go over there, check it out. That's how you can follow and support Amanda. I know Richter and I will be, and will be continuing to be. You let me know at the drop of a hat if you need someone to come in.
Absolutely will do.
Obviously, preferably a nefarious character, but follow your heart.
There's plenty of those.
Yeah, exactly. If not, I can make them that. Guys, we're going to raid Ask the DM. Tell them hi from Carpe and Amanda. As always, take care of each other. Take care of yourselves.
Yes.
We out. We go.